One of them at one point like slipped in a really weird way. I watched it happen. Like he was solidly grounded and he literally just went forward like this and almost fell. And he said that he felt like he had a hand that touched his back and basically just pushed him forward on the edge of the rock. And I watched it happen too.
Good evening, hikers, and welcome back to the Fogcast, the official podcast of Acadia After Dark. I'm the Reverend Redbeard, and as always, I am very happy to have you with me this evening. We've got a great show planned this week. We're going to be joined by Jenni from Newport. She's a local Mainer. She's an advocate. She's a writer. She's a creative. And she had some interesting encounters while she was spending time up here in the shadow of the pines that I would like to share with you all. But before we get into that, if you could, do me a favor. Drop us a rating if you're listening on audio platforms. And if you're on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button, as it helps the show reach more and more listeners every week. New episodes of the Fogcast come out every Monday, but you can get them a day early if you become a lantern holder. So head on over to acadiaafterdark.com for more info, where you can also find blogs, merchandise, and much, much more. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome back, folks. I am joined today by Jenni from Newport. Jenni, how's it going?
I'm doing really good. How about yourself?
I am doing great. It is a fantastic day down here in the park. It's been beautiful weather out the last few days. I'm hoping it'll stay that way for a little bit longer. Been hot, though. How was it out your direction?
Oh, it's been nice and toasty here too, pretty warm. I got the hammock on the porch. I've been laying out there reading, waiting for hummingbird visitors, which we've had plenty of, and we finally just got the AC down from the garage and packed up the boots and stuff. So I think that's a sure sign that winter's finally over.
I think so. I think Memorial Day weekend we can pack it away and say that it's pretty safe to assume we're not going to get any snowstorms. It's happened once. It's happened once at least, because my birthday is Memorial weekend.
Yep.
And I remember one year having a snow flurry, but I don't think we're going to get it. It was 90 degrees the other day, and I'm pretty certain that it's not going to dip below freezing tonight.
Oh my gosh. Knock on wood.
I hope not. Yeah, I hope not, man. Everybody's got seedlings started. We got stuff in the greenhouse. I really would rather not.
No, there's no going back, Mother Nature. Cut it out.
Oh, no, not at this point. I have a whole bunch of seedlings that I'm really hoping will take off, because I honestly need a decent harvest this year.
I understand that completely.
Last two has not been the best.
It was not a great growing year the last couple years, though.
No, really not. We were getting used to we started a little late one year and regretted that. So last year we started early and kind of lost everything to a premature frost that we weren't expecting.
That is like that's like a whole thing that you have to go through as a Mainer and a gardener, though. It's like a rite of passage. It really is. It really, because I've done the same thing. I've done the start too late, start too early, and then get totally spanked for it. So I'd
just end up devastated.
This is going to be your year, friend. I really feel it.
I'm hoping for the best. My fiance has the green thumb, so I am really trusting her on when we should be putting stuff out. So
yeah,
we're going with it.
Music. You pick the music. Let her do the green thumb, and you'll be good.
That's the way to go. That is the way to go. So we had a pretty good chance to get to know each other. Funny enough, you're one of many people that I've met in my time on Threads, and you reached out to me one day, had a pretty funny connection to me, and it was hilarious because it's the oddest of places, but it makes the most sense. You reached out to me one day, shot me a message, and said, "Hey, do you happen to know TJ? You seem like a guy that would know TJ."
I don't even think I said Washburn, did I?
No, you didn't. You just said TJ, and for some fucked up reason, we all know exactly who you mean. If you're from here, we all know him. He's been on the show before, Thomas Washburn Jr. He's one of my favorite local legends, and it was just a funny, small coincidence. So how do you know TJ from?
Oh, he's my big old metal teddy bear from way back in the day. So I would say it was 2008 or so. I started a little record label called Mid-Coast Music Alliance Records. And I was also on the air at WRFR in Rockland. And I was at that time their music and programming director too, as well as having a little show there. And I saw a need locally for the youth to have the metal music brought to them. The children needed the metal. They needed the punk. They needed the local shows. See, I was raised in, I would say, the anarcho-punk community, the squashed warehouse folks, the main punk scene. So I grew up going to a lot of those shows, and honestly, it kept me out of trouble. And then when I was a Camden kid growing up, I saw there was a lot of problems with drugs. There were a lot of suicides too. We had this like mass cluster of deaths that happened around the time I had just graduated high school, and some of them were my friends. And so I was just like, I need to do something. And so I was like, I'd always gone to these shows growing up and helped with them. My dad was a musician. He was involved with like the Rockland Blues Festival and other festivals and things. So like, I kind of was like, I have all the pieces here. I just need people that want to help. And so I started having the kids volunteer, because in my early 20s then, had the kids volunteer, and they would like, work the door and sell tickets and hand out flyers and all that. And I would get local bands to come and play. And one of those bands was the Divine Ruin, which was fronted by Rachel, who's now Rachel McFarland. She's actually married to the bass player from that band years later. They got married. She's still a really, really good friend of mine, but they were under management from her and TJ's band at the time, which was Tomorrow's Tragedy. They were under management from the same individual who I'm not even going to talk about, but they were under management from some individual who they were not happy with. And they came to me and they're like, "Hey, we heard you're thinking about throwing shows, and we want to be part of that, and we need some help, and we just need help getting the word out and getting gigs booked here, there, and everywhere." And that's how Mid-Coast Music Alliance Records was born. And so I helped manage the Divine Ruin and Tomorrow's Tragedy and another handful of local metal bands. And we would throw affordable shows for the kids that were comfrey, all ages, in the Mid-Coast area. And then I would also help them get gigs away. But then we would bring big performers in, like we had Mark Rizzo from Soulfly come and headline like a solo show. And all the bands got to play with him headlining, and like Rachel got to go up and sing a song with him. And so like I tried to just get them like the little local spotlight anytime I could, but also give the kids somewhere they could burn out that extra energy and maybe meet other kids that wanted to start bands. And so that is how we originally met. But since then, we have just worked on endless amounts of different projects together, I would say, including some of his books. I helped edit some of those. So
nice. Amazing. Yeah. He's a great writer. I think I've got all except for maybe one of his books on my bookshelf currently. And I think
so too. Me too, actually. Like I have like a TJ section.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's great. I love that. And especially because, when I met him, like it used to be that basically, like, aside from seeing him at shows, I would always run into him at conventions. Because for a while there, he
Oh yeah,
was like doing a lot of them. Like he was really
I
out
was
there.
too.
So it seemed like
Yep,
every time that I was at one, I'd run into him. I'd be like, "Oh, hey, I'll buy another of your books," and like, "Hey,
yep.
how's it going, buddy?"
That's
And
actually how I got into the art scene, was through conventions with Rachel. Rachel and I used to have a booth together. Yep.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So, I mean, based on the time frame you're talking about, I'm guessing it was probably because there wasn't a lot of places for a while there that were doing any sort of alternative music. The
Yeah.
Cave was really focused on hardcore and punk stuff. We did
Yep.
play some metal there. TJ and them did a lot of shows with
I
Tomorrow's
loved
Tragedy
Kathy.
and the Kingdom
I
Runner.
used to work with
Oh, she's
Kathy and help out there
yes.
when I could, because that was just such a cool place to go. It was also kind of scary if you didn't know the scene. I would bring kids there that had
Yeah.
never gone to a metal show, and they'd be like, "That kid just left with his teeth in his throat by way of ambulance," and I'm like, "That's pretty normal. That's like a Tuesday. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
That's a mosh.
exactly.
That's a grown up mosh pit. You're fine. Everybody's fine here. We're consenting adults."
Right. Yeah, I think that it was kind of a culture shock for a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially if you were only used to like bigger, like real established shows. Like you go to like the convention center
Mm-hmm.
versus you go to a place like there. It's going to be such a huge difference in like
Oh
the
yeah.
way that things are handled. And it was like there was its own scene there, and they have a whole documentary coming out about it soon, and I can't wait to see it when it's done
I'm
and everything like
excited about
that.
that too. It's got its own life,
Yeah.
and it's had such a cool legacy over the years, and the different bands
Yeah.
that have kind of helped shape and form it. And I feel like TJ's been a big part of that legacy. He was a big part of the
Yeah.
legacy at like 103 and Ushuaia's too for a
That was
long
the
time.
next one I was going to mention was
Yeah,
103
I used to
Ushuaia's
go
when
there
those
all the
were a
time.
thing.
Yep, I used
Same.
to go there all the time.
We got to the point where we were playing there at least probably 4 to 5 times a year when I was playing
Nice.
music. It was such a fun place to play, and we usually had pretty good shows. We did get some bigger bands on occasion, like Mushroom
Yep.
Head came there. There was a few Guar playing there, which was an insane show for like
I've
such a
seen Gore a
small
couple. They
fucking
are
venue.
crazy. Mushroom Head's pretty crazy too. They're very aesthetic. Like I've shot them before and had PE together, and they'd had like
Yeah.
the drums with the stuff on them that all like lit up and stuff.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So having that and like that little tiny like stage that Ushuaia's had was
So
insanity. Like,
intimate and weird to experience on that level, I bet, for sure, for sure. So I used to throw shows at the Blue Goose in Northport, if you remember that place.
I don't think I've been there.
They do, it's just a rental hall. So I'd rent whatever place would give me space. They do various events there. They usually do auctions there, but it used to be like a contra dance place back in the
Oh
day, in the
yeah,
old
yeah,
timey days. Yeah. So I would rent that place. I would also rent the old Watts Hall in Thomaston. That was one of my favorite places to throw
yeah.
shows, but the older neighbors would complain relentlessly.
Every time, yeah.
Oh God. And then I also would rent the Thompson Community Center in Union. That was the last big spot that we rented. That was a really big, it used to be a school. So we were like in the old gymnasium, but they had an actual stage. The sound was so
Yeah.
impossible to control in there, though. It was like I could bring in $1 million sound system and it would still sound like shit.
Yeah, nothing you could do at certain points with those places. None of them were designed for that sort of a thing.
We wanted to
Yeah,
start a venue, but it just, it ended up falling through the town. Every town that we tried to do it in pushed back because they love their little postcard, coastal Camden, Rockport, Rockland image, and they want to sweep all the bad kids under the rug, essentially,
yeah.
is what they were trying to do. But
Yeah, I think I like to think that that's starting to become like not so much of a prevalent thing, because it's like I look at it the way it was 20, 30 years ago around here. Now I look at it how it is today, and there is so much more of a presence of counterculture, and like it's changed so much in the way that towns do have skate parks, they do have live music venues, they do have different types of bars and other restaurants and establishments that 10 years ago even would never have seen as much as we do today. And it's a good thing. I'm glad that we're getting there. But back in the day, we only really had a handful of places you could go and hang out. And that was kind of like why I think a lot of us all ended up mingling in the same places.
Hanging out, loitering in the same parking lots and getting kicked out by the police. And every town had a parking lot. Every town had a parking lot. Every town in Maine had a parking lot that kids were getting
ours was the Ames parking lot in Ellsworth when I was growing up. Because Bar Harbor, you could hang out in the green.
Yep.
But they didn't like that. The cops were
Yeah,
right
that
there.
was Camden. They didn't like us in the amphitheater at all. They would just like hang out and make us feel real pressured about being there, being too loud, being too whatever. But we had a street we'd hang out on specifically. We'd always get busted there hanging out, smoking cigarettes and whatever. And the chief of police used to own a funeral home too. So he'd like roll up to us off duty in his hearse and like roll down the windows and be like, "Didn't I tell you kids that she'll kill you? Keep walking. I don't want to tell my boys to pick you up."
Yeah, so right there as a perfect encapsulation of just the type of place Maine is for people that only ever see the postcards. Yeah. The literal sheriff in the town or the constable or whatever your town happened to be, the chief of police was also a funeral director, just covering all the bases. You know?
Yeah, I mean, death and taxes or something. I don't know. Job security. People always need policing and people are always dying. So I guess
job security is never going to be an issue around here for sure. It's like
no, but in Belfast we had a very specific spot and it was in front of what used to be an old UU church right next to the laundromat and the co-op. And Mike McFadden in his early deputy days used to come and chase us off of there all the time.
It sounds familiar for sure. Yeah, I think every town, like you said, had that spot and every one of them seemed to have their same friggin' people that would ruin it for everybody. And,
Yep.
But yeah, the other fun parts of like discussion that we've come across, because you happen to have a stand at one of the local antique shops that I recently discovered, which is weird because it was one of those moments where I've been down that street so many times.
Yep.
And one day I just happened to be in the neighborhood. I stopped over to Flex It. I was looking, I was going to purchase a fiddle that I found at one of the other antique stores, but I was looking for somebody that could possibly repair it. The people at Black Moon were like, well, we can't, but the place over across the way, that antique store, they get instruments once in a while and they might know somebody.
Yeah.
So I walked over and that was when I discovered Dreamcatcher Antiques, which is a fantastically cool place. Like, my God, that is so awesome. I love that's an adventure going in there. It's amazing. Everybody
it's
talks
so
about
much bigger on the inside than it looks on the outside too.
Yeah, that was the weirdest part. Is like I went in and it's like one of those deals like where you just walk in the door and all of a sudden the whole place opens up and it's it's 3 floors technically.
3 floors. Yep.
And just packed with stuff from end to end. Like so much stuff. You could spend days in there checking it out.
Oh yeah, but not in an annoying like flea market, I'm gonna fall down and break stuff sort of way though, which is also cool because some of those big older buildings you get, it's just like I'm scared to go in here or touch anything in this particular booth because I'm afraid I'm gonna break something.
Yeah.
It's well laid out and the ownership is nice too. Like their family owned and operated and it was so ironic because I saw a picture of my own business in there on your timeline and I was like, hey, Wicked Treasure, that's me. Hey. So I have a couple really good friends of mine and my fellow and I, we all collect uranium glass and we have like specific niches I'll say that we've got into within that. Like my fellow has a whole case full of nothing but the uranium slag ashtrays and lighters exclusively only and like stuff by Acro Agate. I'm more into Burmese figures, whatnot, but we started out just collecting the regular green, Vaseline glass and going to thrift stores and flea markets and yard sales and hunting it before people really knew what it was, before it was really cool, and starting to come back into popularity. So we found just a bunch of stuff for basically like bargain prices everywhere. And then our taste started to expand and we're like, man, we're either going to have to buy more glass cases or get bigger places or start selling some of our entry level pieces to make room in our display.
And that's how it becomes a business.
Exactly. And so like we ended up going to a few different spots to find out, what would work, what they would offer and that sort of thing. And it just felt really right there. I mean, the other thing to know about the Dreamcatcher is it used to be a funeral home for a really long time, which to me adds to the appeal.
I didn't know that. That's wicked cool.
This adds to the appeal. And
for sure.
And so the downstairs used to be the morgue. And it stays perpetually cool down there all summer long. They don't have AC down there, I don't think. And it just stays nice and cool all summer. It's crazy. And she had even offered us another spot like up on the top floor at one point before we moved in. I was like, no, I want the morgue. It's dark, it's creepy, it's cool. That's where I don't care if less people go down there.
Perfectly. Yeah.
I don't care if less people go down there, because she's like, oh, more people go upstairs than downstairs. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I want the morgue. So we set up down there. It was easier to get our black light set up the way we needed it too. It was easier to shade things off, because upstairs it was just like a lot of open light, and like we just wouldn't have had the same kind of display effect, I think, as we do down there. And we quickly sold a lot of the entry pieces that we got into our collections. And so then we had to start kind of like carrying nicer stuff there, because we realized that more people were collecting and they wanted nicer stuff. And so I started buying based on what I would want in my own collection. That way, if it doesn't sell, I'm like, okay, this piece is mine now. So now we're trying to like continue to supply inventory, but keep a good selection of entry level pieces there still, like the plates, dishes, cups, that sort of thing. But then we're also selling nostalgia, which spans anywhere from the 40s through, I would say, the 90s to early 2000s. So toys, gifts, glasswares, like old retro vintage cool stuff. And then we just started getting into Pokemon cards and Magic the Gathering cards too, because we have a lot of nerds in our group of friends. And so I'm actually started another side business off the side business, where I'm now making playable decks for people for Pokemon, like selling like an out of the box. You can take this and sit down and play a game and, actually win it potentially with this deck. So you don't have to like rip 5,000 Pokemon packs to build a deck for the people that just want to sit down and play, basically.
Yeah. A lot better than the pre-con decks that they actually sell, because those are typically you buy one of those, you're buying it for one card, maybe two.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And that's $15-$20. Well, I don't even know nowadays. Last time I had to buy a pre-con deck of Magic, I was shocked at how this prices of everything has scaled nowadays.
Well, Magic is coming back in such a big way that you're going to see that continue. If you have old cards in your collection, start snapping them now so that you can
wish I did. Someday I'll tell you the story that I had happen when I moved out of my parents' house, and what happened to all of my Magic cards when I moved out, because
I have a story like that. I have a story like that about my Garfield collection, so we'll swap trauma stories.
Oh Lord, yeah, it's one of those things. But I gotta pick your brain about a couple of things there, because I'm a big nerd myself. I love the Magic, and my kids are into Pokemon. I grew up on the stuff, so there's nostalgia there.
Of course.
It's definitely far outpaced me now, because half of this stuff I don't know anything about it anymore. You tell me most of the Pokemon for the last probably 3 generations, I would not be able to name a single one. Magic, I can hop in. I bought what was it, last year when the Distant Worlds or the Final Fantasy set came out. I got into it, bought a booster box, bought the commander decks. I was like, I gotta have those, because Final Fantasy is one of those things for me. It's that. Fallout. If I see a Fallout thing or I see a Final Fantasy thing, I'm probably gonna buy it.
My thing is Zelda. Anything Zelda.
Yeah, so I saw those. That got me to dip my toe in the water. Then I immediately realized like how much the game has changed. So I was like, wow.
Yeah. There's like several formats now that people can play in, and I haven't even kept up on all of it either. Like I still just know the basics from high school. So I will say that I'm not the Magic one in the group. I have a friend, Tasha, who like literally will look at any card and be able to tell you whatever you need to know about it.
Yep.
But when she started trying to describe to me all of the different types of play now and all the different types of crossover and how you can use that, and she's going into great detail about building rat decks and all this other stuff, and I'm just like, you lost me, babe. Too many rules. I want to get the Star Trek deck that they're releasing. That one, I need to have that. I definitely need to have that. But yeah, there are so many different ways to play now. I have a friend that plays only limited, which is like you literally just play cards as you're pulling them out of the packs.
That's crazy.
I know. I'm just like, you're like literally ripping packs, and just whatever you get, that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah, like I used to do drafts back in the day, and I guess it's not far off, but at least you had a little bit of thought that went into it and what you were building for. You knew what you were going to be building towards, at least. That's wild to me. Wow.
So I
Yeah.
think they're doing it really in a way that makes it accessible to everybody, because I think like D&D went through a really big natural resurgence, and that doesn't need much of a facelift to be recognizable and to be interpreted by newer generations as something that could be really wholesome and great. And we had like
Yeah.
Stranger Things. Like my teenager now has his own little D&D club. He came to our adult group.
Same with mine.
Yeah, it came to our adult group, learned to DM. Now he has his own little thing once a week that he does, that he DMs and whatnot. And so I think that was like really, really translatable, without needing a huge makeover. Like 5e is, and the new rules are whatever. But like they didn't do a lot. They didn't do a lot to it.
Yeah.
But I think with Magic, it's like it's so involved that for them to make that appeal to new generations, they have to release the Final Fantasy deck and the Star Trek deck and the whatever. They're trying to pull back our generation with some of this, but they're also trying to open it up to new generations with the crossovers with heroes and all this other shit. And they're trying to make it less intimidating, I think, for younger people to join, in a way that is,
I could definitely see that happening. I mean, my kid is interested in it, played a few games with me, was like, oh, that's a cool game.
Yeah.
But she's neck deep in Pokemon. So that was really where it was.
Pokemon doesn't really change. I mean, they may add new Pokemon, and I didn't even know that about fairy type. I was just like, what happened in the past 10 years here? I don't even know there was a fairy type. Okay, cool. Fairy type.
We have new colors?
Right? I only accounted for this many colors. Why do I have one more in this pile right now? So that's kind of how that happened. But they really have not. I mean, they introduced ancient Pokemon and future Pokemon, but they're literally just old ancient Pokemon, and then also future. They are what they are. They're stronger. There's a backstory. It's not so important if you play. You just know the cards are stronger, and some of the trainers go with the future and past Pokemon and whatever. But the rules and the intrinsic way that you play that game, they haven't come out with 5,000 new formats to play in or anything scary like that. So
right. I think the biggest change that I've seen with that, and I guess it kind of has changed this way with Magic as well, is just how ravenous people have gotten about it, and specifically in the collecting, because I'm sure you're seeing this as a person that deals with these things.
Oh yeah.
Because I go into Walmart. The first time that I went into a Walmart, it was like, hey, I'd like to buy a deck for my kid and myself to be able to play a game together. And they were like, oh, sorry, you're limited. You can only buy one deck at a time. I was like, what? And then I see these people that literally will go in there and clean out a store shelf.
So they're selling them. If you'll look at these tins that they sell at Walmart, and then go on eBay and look for the same tins. They are buying them and they're selling them for double the price. That's what people are doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I see people there was a lady at the Walmart near me that she stocks the cards every Thursday, and she literally has to barricade off the aisles because she's fighting people off at either end, or they're just taking them right out of the boxes before they even make it on the shelf. And this stuff is insane, because I remember the Pokemon heyday when it first started. And how people were filling my local card shop to get decks and stuff. Oh yeah, I remember it. Pokemon League and stuff like that way back 20 some odd years ago. And now I see this little lady that is just fending off these 40 some odd year old dudes that are just slavering over these decks of cards before they've ever seen any of it.
I know. So this is I think this has to do with compulsive gambling addiction and stuff like that too. I think some of that plays into it, because you don't know, you could get absolute fire, you could get a god deck, you could get nothing in 25 different packs that you pull, and so this is also leaked over into auction culture too. So there's all these auctions now on Whatnot and on eBay that are live auctions where they're doing live pack rips and stuff like that. And so that part of this is why we're seeing the big resurgence now, though, is because of the way these card pulls and this gambling kind of mentality around it has surfaced in live auction culture. And it's crazy. If you watch some of these live auctions, people are insane. I've watched some of them. It's absolutely nuts. My partner and I thought about doing them, but we're like, I don't want to do that to people. I feel like it's just kind of buying into some weird compulsion they're having, and I don't want to make money that way. So I was just like, I'm gonna make playable decks that are entry level up to advanced, that don't cost an arm and a leg, that actually have a theme to them, that actually center around really cool characters and really cool evolution builds, and they aren't full of a bunch of just filler and crap. It's just evolutions only, good trainers only.
Yeah. No, that's way better way of going about it. And honestly, for getting people into the game, I think that's definitely the best bet because you're gonna
Yeah.
have a better chance of somebody being able to learn the game if they don't feel like they're getting stomped on the first time they play it.
Yep. Yep.
That was
Yep.
a lot of my kids' early experiences is me like building her a deck and being like, here, play this one because you'll have a chance. If you don't, you're gonna
Right.
die.
Oh, I know. My kid said there's like two leagues in Pokemon. There's like the kids that just play, and then there's the dudes that show up in like a suit and tie to just destroy the children for no reason other than they want to destroy the children. And I'm like, that is morbid. But he was the Pokemon trainer at KidsCon for a few years. So he kind of saw it firsthand, and he like was going to enter some, I think he didn't enter some of the championships or whatever. And it was just like these dudes would come with these like, tear down the earth decks to compete with children. It was just really shitty. Honestly, they should have separated the leagues or whatever in some of these games.
Yeah.
I'm not saying at KidsCon, it was different games that he was involved in outside of that. His experience at the con was always really good. But
we had those even back in the day. There was always that 40 some odd year old guy that would show up Saturday mornings to Pokemon League when we were like 10. And why was he here? Who knows? But the dude literally would just beat everybody there. And he's like, look, I got all 10 badges in a weekend. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool, man.
How many kids did you make cry in the process? Oh my God.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing that was really cool, and it was like one of the first things when I went into Dreamcatcher that my fiance saw, because I sent her pictures. I was like, you're gonna love this store. Check this stuff out. So we saw their uranium glass kit in the front, and then we found your stand.
Yep.
And since then, my fiance has become more and more fascinated by the uranium glass collecting and stuff like that. So we haven't bought anything, but it is something that we definitely are interested in. And we've been doing a little casual, like online armchair research on the stuff.
Yes.
As somebody that deals with the stuff a lot, what are some tips to get somebody started? Like, what's the first things you need to know?
So I would say, especially if you're looking at buying pieces online, to make sure that they are using a true 395 light in their pictures, message the seller and ask, because some people will use a 365 light to make like manganese or lower levels of uranium look more green, more bright. I found this particularly to be the case with jadeite pieces that people will say have uranium in them. They'll use a 365 light and it looks more lit from within. You should see that really bright green glow on it in the photos, and you should also see kind of a purple sort of glow in the background. That's the difference between the 395 and the 365 light, slightly different UV spectrums, but I find that sometimes online sellers will use the 365 light to make something look like uranium that isn't necessarily uranium.
That sounds right.
But you can never go wrong with a good Burmese or a custard piece, because it's genuinely, you can tell they glow from the photos. That's kind of the niche that I've gotten into, is Burmese and custard. Bring a little glowy flashlight with you everywhere you go, because you never know. Sometimes thrift stores will have it and they won't realize what they have. Antique malls may not be hip to it yet. Though Goodwill screens all their stuff now. They got onto it. Of course
they would.
So now every single Goodwill screens with a UV flashlight every suspicious looking glass piece that comes in, and they will mark it accordingly now, or they'll sell it on their auction site. But like Salvation Army, if you go to places like that, sometimes you may still occasionally find a random little piece here or there. But now, more often than not, you're going to find that the antique shops and stuff, they know what they have and they're pricing it like they know what they have. So I always tell people to do the Google Lens before they buy something in person. Just see, like, can I get the same piece for the same amount of money by just buying it?
Right.
And especially for people on vacation too, you're not going to want to bring back a huge uranium glass plate unless you can't you can't get it anywhere else, right? So we try to price according to that too. So I can say that what we set our prices at is below what you will see for online typical pricing with shipping and everything, because we want people to be able to enter the market without paying that much, because we really were just like random hunters to start, and then our collection just got so out of control and our niches got different that we were like, oh, I guess we have to start selling and turn this into a little side hustle.
Yeah, and now that it's becoming more and more of a thing that I see all the time, I mean, even in just the last few months, the amount of like random Facebook groups and stuff like that that are all about uranium collecting and stuff like that.
And we actually have one. We're starting a collectors club. I've not been super active with it, but I'm going to be more active this summer. And that is already on Facebook and IG as the Maine Uraniacs.
Nice. We'll have to be on the lookout for that one.
Like the Animaniacs. And I did do a tour of a spot in Carmel called Back in the Day, where we often find some cool uranium pieces. So I kind of do walkthroughs of places, and these are not places that we work for or anything like that. They're just places that we shop. We don't have any business with them other than we buy from them. So anytime we go to a place, we try to document any uranium pieces that we leave behind. And then we post them up there. So it's like, oh, hey, Bangor, Maine, left behind finds at Schoolhouse Antiques, like this is what we found. It's a cool piece. If you want it, it's right here. Here's the price tag, whatever. And then we tra-la-la off to the next place. So we're going to be doing more of that, and we're hoping to publish a free guide that just has all the places that we have gone as a group or individually that we know consistently have cool uranium pieces too. That way collectors know where to go if they're looking for something specific.
That's awesome. Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, we'll definitely be checking out with that group. I'll have to get the link from you or something at some point here, because I would be very interested in learning a lot more about that. It's become a subject of interest recently. It's wicked cool.
My boyfriend's trying to get me to do a YouTube too, where I go over the history of all the pieces in our collection. So that may be
that'd be awesome.
That might be brewing in the future too, because there's a gap there on YouTube. There's some pretty good channels, but they don't do like consistent videos about, and they get tons and tons of views. And he's like, we have so many pieces in our collection. He knows the history of every piece that he owns, and I know the history of every piece I own. So I'm like, yeah, that might be cool. People might be into it.
Not a bad supplementary income too. If it does get views and stuff like that, it can always be nice to have a little bit extra somewhere.
Oh gosh, I never count on that though. We'll see. I attract a very specific type of nerd, and we'll see how that goes.
I'm finding nowadays there's more of those very specific types of nerds than I ever thought possible, because the stuff that I used to get absolutely just mocked for in high school is now like the most popular things out there.
Oh yeah.
So it's a weird world to live in, and I guess it's happening as like everything around us is collapsing. Cool how that works out.
Yeah, I know. Growing up inside the collapse sure has been fun, hasn't it?
Oh, what an experience. Holy cow, the horrors do be persisting. So you've aside from the business you've got going on, you've done a ton from the list of things that you were a founder of the Maine Cannababes.
Yep.
I remember coming across that. It feels like forever ago at this point.
It was. We stopped during the pandemic because the pandemic was the pandemic.
Yes. Nothing was happening for anybody at that point, unless you were making bread or starting a YouTube channel, and that was pretty much the only things. You were on the docuseries Weedakit, which I've watched. That was a fun series. It's so random, weird small world again. So you've done a lot when it comes to medical cannabis legislation.
Yep.
Pick your brain real quick on that, because maybe people might be a little surprised to know this about me. People that listen to the show, I don't want to shock everybody, but I smoked a little bit of weed in my life. It's been a thing. I just don't want anybody to be too fucking surprised by this. So
I'm smoking a little weed right now, Fred.
Exactly. So that being what it is, how do you feel we are nowadays when it comes to legislation? We just recently in Bar Harbor, or on the island, they just shot down some proposals for recreational places on the island, which I'm a little upset about. At the same time, it's not too severe of a loss, because I'm in that weird position to where I don't necessarily like the direction that a lot of recreational stuff is going. And I don't really like the way that business handles things like that, especially when it comes to medicine, because the moment it becomes a recreational thing, the medicine will probably suffer, in my opinion.
Yep.
How do you feel about the general state of legalization as a whole right now in Maine?
Wow, that's such a loaded question. Okay, so I still feel really good about recreational legalization in the sense that I never expected to be able to be a fully formed adult and just walk into a weed store and be like, "Give me some of the blueberry kush, please." Like, I just,
Hell yes.
never in my lifetime thought we would see that. And to be part of that, citizens initiative the way I was such an amazing experience. It taught me so much. It taught me a lot about interpersonal communication. And, we had groups of people that were largely on the same side of the issue fighting with each other. There's a lot of infighting with the caregiver communities, afraid that medical would get swallowed whole or be held to some kind of unfair standard. And I still feel that recreational serves a very specific market the same way that medical serves a very specific market. Recreational is for tourists that are coming into the state. They want that top shelf packaging, whatever. The thing you're going to get there is you have bigger batches, and so they're going through these sterilization processes that will make certain substances inert, but will they affect the taste? Will they affect the flavor profile?
Yes.
So like commercial weed, yeah, it's more tested, it's more sterilized in some cases, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes that quality suffers and that patient-to-patient care suffers because you can't walk in a rec shop and be like, what would be good for a toothache?
Right.
You can't. They can't talk to you like that. That's because it's outside of the scope of their licensing and everything else.
Exactly.
And you saw the switch like happen in Seattle in a very dramatic way. I was out there when they were like never allowed to talk about medical again at some weird point that the shops were switching rec or whatever. And so everyone was really afraid that was going to happen here, and it didn't, and it hasn't. And I still think that it won't. We've made some really good ground with like the Hickman Amendment when they were talking about mandatory testing. We're like, okay, well, what about small batch caregivers, and what about the testing wait times, and what about this all needs to be addressed before any of these caregivers are going to agree to it. So I've been a part of some of those larger conversations with caregivers, where we're really trying to come to terms with the fact that there are bigger influences that are trying to give both programs blanket treatment. But so we're essentially still fighting to make sure that, like, we believe that medicine should be tested and it should be safe and it should be clean. Nobody is arguing with that, but we need to do this in a way that makes sense to caregivers when there's only a limited amount of labs. They're over testing for shit they don't need to be testing for. It's costing them an arm and a leg. Like, give them a basic panel, like basic requirements, let them be grandfathered into the stuff that costs more if that's the way they're going to do it. Stop dickering over packaging. My God, we're still doing that too. We're still dickering over packaging. Like, I'm just like, I'm so sick of that argument. We've been having that argument for 10 fucking years now, and I'm so over it. Oh God, I want to just slam Eric Berkey's face into a table so many times. Sorry, Eric. I do like you, Eric, but you frustrated me a lot then, and I'm sure we can agree with that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. It sounds like there's still work being done, but it also sounds like the people that are working on it have a better mindset than the black and white one size fits all approach that seems to have been the standard that I see when it comes to like legislation. A lot of time they don't think about anything with nuance, so then you end up with these weird situations like you were just discussing about small caregivers and stuff like that. Like, those are the places that almost always fall through the cracks. You look at it overwhelmingly in this country in particular when it's come to like a lot of the places that have made it legal on the East Coast. I can't talk to the West as much, but the East Coast anyways, a lot of those places, it seems like they really struggle when it comes to that. And it's an either or, all or nothing approach, which doesn't work for a lot of the smaller businesses. And that's where, like, Maine, we thrive on small business in Maine. That's really what the heart of Maine is. So if we make it so that it's not accessible, it's gonna be a fucking problem here. I'm so glad that there are people that are speaking to that as opposed to just being like, let Marlboro have it. They'll be fine.
Right now. And I do definitely have to give a lot of credit to Catherine and Glenn Lewis from the Medical Marijuana Caregivers of Maine, MMCM, because they have been there since the start of all of this, trying to fight to protect patient rights. And generally speaking, they've always been aligned in a way that I really agree with. And I appreciate their approach a lot. And of all the caregivers and groups out there of caregivers caregivers or associations of caregivers. They really are, the good stuff, and they've been doing that hard work for a long time to reach across the aisle and get everybody to agree about this shit. So I just definitely wanted to mention that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, glad to get your opinions on that.
Yeah.
I'll shift gears again, because one of the things that you were talking to me this morning about. So you're a self-published author.
Yep.
You've studied in journalism.
Yep.
So you've writing background. That's awesome. I love that. You're currently working on something new, a sci-fi piece, which I'm excited to get to read a little bit when you are able to send it over to me. You got my email now, I think, through this, so we should be able to link up on that, and I'll anxiously read that. So what, as an author, what has been your, I guess, what's your genre of preference? What have you been writing, and what do you plan to write?
Everything and anything. Oh my gosh. Like, I even do technical writing. I've written educational manuals, instructional manuals. Okay. So my published work is actually poetry, and it's like very serious poetry. Melodies and Minor Keys. That one's on Amazon. And this is all poetry that centers around grief and loss and illness and death and the things I've, had to experience back to back to back to back to back. So at some point I was diagnosed with prolonged grief disorder or complex grief disorder. And so poetry for me was like a way that I could channel the grief and deal with the feelings and the stupid things that were, get them out of the body, so to speak. And so I wrote in this book for, 5 years that I went through these series of events. And eventually it was just kind of like, wow, this is really introspective, and I kind of want to share this with other people that are going through grief. And so I did, I self-published that many years ago. I want to say it was like 15 years ago now, maybe not that long, maybe like 12. TJ actually helped edit that one for me. Yep. And I wanted to publish this as a physical book. Eventually it was only as an ebook, and I wanted to add to it, and that's still overdue and, in the works. And then I would say right now that I am enrolled for UMA in an interdisciplinary degree bachelor's program. So part of it is business, part of it is journalism. So I've been doing investigative pieces on Substack now, I would say for about 6 to 8 months, where I kind of tackle complex social situations, political situations, sometimes there's random shit that happens on threads like Stickergate. I got real close to Rachel from Stickergate there. We got to be friends over time, honestly. Like,
that's fun.
No. And I just covered the whole fiasco with PT Books and Paul Smith and Fabled and Bound, and I interviewed the owner of Fable and Bound. And so I've been kind of doing these discovery pieces and just figuring out what my style is. I have one Substack that's focused on more world issues, and then I have one that's more centered around local and state issues that I've neglected and need to do more with. And that
it's hard when so much is going on in the world, right?
I know. Yeah, and that one is called The Main Soapbox, and that's actually based on an old political discourse group that I had on Facebook years ago. And so I kind of try to keep that one centered around like social justice and action and things that people feel are unknowable, and making those, more knowable and whatnot. So I'm really good at deep research. And so with journalism, though, I'm actually pursuing a path that looks more at like Acadian diaspora and lost Acadian families, because I come from one of them. I come from one of them. And so my capstone is actually centered around proving that my mom was a Canadian from birth, and then maybe like getting the hell out of here. I don't know. We're going to find out.
Hey, I mean, I'm second generation removed from it. I already got my paperwork. If I wanted to go to Canada tomorrow, they'll take me home.
Oh yeah. So there's a backlog. There's a backlog of people trying to come through for C3 under the grandparents or whatever. Like, I'm trying to go there by saying my mom was always Canadian. So I'm going a little bit different route, and it's less expensive, easier to get in. It would be post-mortem, but it's totally possible to do. And so I'm going to go that route because it'll be easier, but then I want to help work in immigration to get people like you out of Maine over there. That's what I want to do. And I'm sure they'll love to have me because they need help. They need help so bad, right? So like, and if I can use what I know about genealogy and history and whatever to help people in the process and work that into a future career, then that's great. But the sci-fi novel came out of nowhere. I don't have an explanation for this other than I grew up reading nothing but sci-fi and horror. That was my preferred genres growing up. So I read a lot of Isaac Asimov. I read all the L. Ron Hubbard books. I read like literally everything I could get my hands on, and anything for horror like Stephen King and Christopher Pike, and like all of Stephen King to all of his weird fantasy cooking the beautiful whatever dragons and shit that he had going on.
Yeah, the 80s were a wild time for him, and I don't think people really understand how much that man wrote. Like, people talk about the stuff like it and things like that. They do not recognize the amount of random stuff that man would just put his pen to. This is
why he needs ghostwriters now, because he's old and he cannot, he cannot keep up with like the 80s version of himself. Like, he just
I can't blame him at this point. Like, come on now.
I guess he lost KIT and he just ran away to Florida. Now he just like basically lives in Florida and rents his house out. And I'm like, Steven, I don't blame you, but also fuck you.
Yeah, right. At least come back and check in with us once in a while. Damn, man.
I watched the death of radio from inside the industry, so I knew it was coming. He held on as long as he could, bless him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been a thing too, is like, over the years, like we've, I have background in broadcasting, and seeing it change year over year every year. And now, especially nowadays, where like they're cutting a lot of the public funding for like the community radio stations and stuff like that, it's just harder and harder. So when you see places that like WKIT really are buoyed by private ownership donations like he was willing to do, and now it got passed on to some good hands, it's doing well for itself now. I'm happy to hear. But it's one of those things people just don't understand how valuable of an asset it is until it'll be gone one of these days.
Exactly.
We're all gonna suffer that day, because it's gonna be bad. It's kind of like now where we're seeing physical media going away. Well, it's starting to come back, but physical media falling by the wayside to streaming is the equivalent.
I hope
to
there's
radio.
like a resurgence. Maybe someday there will be a resurgence, like there has been with vinyl and film photography. Like maybe radio will crawl back from the depths. But I actually grew up in radio too. So my mom used to be the general manager of what was once upon a time 104.7 Fox FM. Back in the 90s, top 40 station. So
yes.
Yeah, so I've seen it on the wall for a long time, and they sold out to a bigger network. They became 104.7 The Bear, and they like laid off everybody but my mom, and my mom was like there by herself. Everybody else was in some other office somewhere, you know what I mean? She just listened to country music in an office by herself going crazy, so she had to quit.
Yeah, that'll do that to you, honestly.
Yeah.
Me some country and folk, but I can only sit there and listen to it for so many hours before I'd probably lose it too.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely want to get to learn more about your writing, especially the stuff about like Acadian stuff, because that was another subject that we definitely need to dive into.
We could make like a whole other podcast just about that. But so the sci-fi book though is really just born out of me watching some dark side of Instagram stuff with some people that maybe I would consider deeply unwell. And just watching these videos of people that can say they are saying they can astral project to different places, and whatever, power to them, that's fine. Right, we get deep in the woo-woo, and I saw this one early in the morning, and it was like about going to this underground base under the base in Antarctica, and there's like a whole hidden civilization there, and I'm like, that actually sounds like the setup for a really cool book. And I put the phone down and I got my notepad and I just started writing, right? Like I started webbing. And I'm like, it's like the Scooby-Doo gang, okay? It's like a bunch of nerds on ice, and they're hired by military contractors, and they're just there to measure glacial drift and like whatever, but they start hearing this weird vibrations under the ice, and they start thinking that something else is going on, and then they realize that the government is, and I used actual buildings on the site of the base, and everything is like, they don't like, crawl up my butt, the military or something about this, but I was just like, saying that something's hot. Basically, they were hiding something under this one particular blue building and whatnot, and there's this one young scientist that gets to go exploring essentially and meet this other civilization that the government's been hiding because they haven't talked to them for a very long time for various reasons that have to do with real world history, we'll say. And yeah. And we'll say too that, you know, there may be some people or civilizations previously that have disappeared and ended up here, but not all of them, not like the Mayans, not like that kind of hokey pokey, but you know, that there may have been certain events through time where people chose to go there, but they chose to never like open up the door to the outside for reasons. Yeah, so
yeah, no, that sounds incredibly fascinating and very layered. I love that type of rabbit hole that starts out as like such a specific thing, and then just once you go in, it just expands into like so many other places that it can go.
Yeah, I could see the reveal. I could see how it all turned out once I started writing, and by the time I stopped, and I'm doing this all on my stupid Samsung Note app. I'm not even like doing it on paper. I'm not typing it. I am like thumbing it, and I'm swipe texting, and I'm talk to texting, and the grammar's awful, and like everything is awful in this first thing that I do. But I look at it and I'm like, yeah. I look at it and I'm like, that's like 15 chapters. I think I can finish this in 5 more.
Wrap it up.
And so then I did. Like I spent the rest of the night writing, and it was rough and awful and terrible. And now I'm translating it into something that actually that I would want you to read. You know, but like it's all there, and I reread it and I'm like, this is a book I would read. I wrote this. This is really cool. And
oh, that's cool.
So I get into flow states with writing, and it's weird. It's like I could have an idea and it could go on for days and I could just keep writing. We have no ideas for months. And it's the same thing with my art too, like the same exact thing. And I can't explain it. I can't. But a lot of the stories I wrote when I was a kid were sci-fi, and they were about aliens and ghosts and about my cats being able to mysteriously talk after aliens visited, things that my teachers were like really concerned about for no reason, like me talking to ghosts and making friends with ghosts. That was like a whole other story I wrote that got a call home. So I mean, it shouldn't surprise me, like this lives in me, right? Like it wanted to come out. So I'm just I don't know what's going to happen with this. I don't know what I'm going to do to promote it, if anything, but I am going to call it Under the Shelf, the lost the lost civilization of Antarctica. Yeah.
I am very, very excited to get to check that out. And I hope that whenever it does get around to a position to where you might be willing to put it out into the wider world, you let me know so that we can definitely help you to get the word out. Because that's a big part of what I hope to do is having people on the show. I'm always an open door from that. And if you ever have anything you need help promoting or spreading word, I'm here for that. So definitely keep me posted, and I can't wait to get to read it. So yeah, we've covered a lot. We definitely have plenty more we could talk about, I'm sure. But we're getting to that point where I want to get into the meat and the potatoes of what this show is all about. We live in Maine. We know there's some weird stuff that happens up here. You sent me a few stories.
Yep.
I don't want to take them all from you. I don't want to take them all from you this time, because I definitely want to have you back on, because I want to do another chat and talk about the Acadian stuff, because I think we got to have a good podcast episode just talking about that.
Oh, hell yeah.
What I want to talk about today, I think what I want to hear, your witch window story. I definitely want to hear about that. So I know what a witch window is. People from New England probably know what that is. How did you explain it and tell us your story?
Okay, so a witch window goes back to the time of the Salem witch trials. People were absolutely convinced that witchcraft was real. And so in New England, you will find places that have these weird slanted little windows like this, because that was supposed to prevent witches from flying straight in with their brooms. And so if you see, this is very real, and there's still houses around Maine that have these witch windows. And we lived in Waterville, Maine at the time, and we were in an old house that was split up into apartment buildings on Western Avenue. And we're in the upstairs apartment, and of course my bedroom not only had a weird little creepy hidden passageway in the wall, it had a witch window. early introduction to needing a nightlight at age 4 or 5.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep. And I was constantly telling my mom, and I vividly remember this, though I will say a lot. I was a little kid. And a lot of it I recalled would happen right when I woke up in the morning. And I would think that maybe the things were waking me up. But my mom's like, it had to be a dream. But like, trust me, I do still know the difference between dreams and being awake, I think, even at that age.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I would see stuff fly off my shelf, like physically just fly right off my shelves. Like my stuffed animals would go flying. I had this one particular, it was this terrifying, like caroler kind of figure that had like a dump, the caroler, the Christmas caroler dolls that like,
Yes.
oh, like creepy ass face.
Yep.
And it had like a dove on its hand, and I remember its like head rotating around and a hat coming off, and like I'm not even kidding, like this is stuff I would wake up and I would see like this doll's head, or I'd see, and I had these like Winnie the Pooh things on the wall, and one morning I woke up and they were all like swinging.
Oh man. That yeah. At that point I gotta say, Mom, just take the stuff out of the room. Like if you don't believe it's haunted, you have it.
Right. And it was always stuff that was on that shelf that was on the wall that the witch window was too.
Oh wow. Yeah. See, that
Yeah.
is upsetting. And
Yeah.
and especially the mention of the little passageway. I don't know
Yep.
what is with that and like older main homes where they have these little tiny like doorways that just
Crawl
pass from
spaces.
one spot, crawl spaces. Yeah, like
Yeah.
every time that I would go to a camp or a hotel or something that have one of those, I'm like, oh great, this is where I'm sleeping tonight, isn't it? Sure enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would have nightmares about that door, that it was like a big, huge giant door to a big dark place. I remember that too. Like I would have nightmares that door was enormous, even though it was like really, really tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Builds itself up in the mind, especially at that age. Everything seems like bigger.
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of the New England experience, especially when you live in older places like that, is having those weird childhood memories to where you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, you can't have imagined it because you don't have that imagination for those things at that age,
Right.
really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like to see it and really believe that it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, like I had stuff like that when I was really little that I'm like, I didn't think of that sort of stuff in that way when I was 5 years old, when I was
Right.
4 years old. I wouldn't have
Exactly.
thought of that way until I was grown up, and I wasn't having that memory when I was grown up. I remember it when I was 4.
Right.
Like,
And I had no idea what a witch window was when I was 4 years
yeah,
old. Like I had
yeah.
no idea. It's like I remember describing this experience to somebody later in life, and they're like, "Oh, it was a witch window." And I'm like, "Fuck, it was a witch window, wasn't it?"
Yeah,
That makes it
why
even
do we have that?
that makes it even weirder. Ugh.
That's yeah, and that's another one of those things where like I remember going to I'm trying to remember the name of the place. It was a place down in Bar Harbor, and it was an old inn that had been, well, it wasn't an inn originally, it was something else, been converted to a bed and breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was staying on the third floor one time. They had one of those windows, and I could not sleep because for the entire night, the only thing I could think of was staring at that window. And it was like, I don't know if you ever read any of H.P. Lovecraft's work, but he
Yep.
had the one that was later turned into a short film. I remember the name of the short film. I don't remember the story, but there was the guy that was just in the hotel room and he was staring at the corner and kept seeing the non-Euclidean angles of like everything that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it drove him. And that was how I felt for like that 1 or 2 days that I was staying in this hotel room. And I was like, what the fuck is with this window? Come to find out years later, that's the history behind these things. And I'm like,
Yep.
I know that it was just a silly superstition that built those things,
Yep.
but to have it like still have that feeling and that kind of ominousness to it, it still messes with me to this day.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You've definitely had a pretty thorough main life from the sounds of it as far as experiencing weird crap,
Oh, for
because
sure.
a lot of the towns and stuff, like every one of them, like, oh yeah, I know that one. Oh yeah, that one's haunted as
That
shit.
checks
Like
out.
stuff
That
like
checks
that. Yeah.
out. I just happen to live in all the really fucking haunted towns throughout life, I guess. Because I've lived all over the state, so.
Yeah. One of the other ones, so you were in Belfast for a while.
Uh-huh.
So there was some activity around a
Ooh.
cemetery back in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So the teenage years, what
Yep.
did you see? What did you hear?
More than one thing on more than one occasion with more than one person present. Actually, that's how haunted this particular stretch of road is.
Ooh.
So, and it's the whole road. The cemetery's part of it is just really the worst part of it.
Yeah.
There's also running river or running stream that goes like underneath of where like the cemetery area is. So I think the running water contributes to maybe increase in kind of veil thinness there.
Yeah.
But it's the Doak Road in Belfast. And so most of our experiences happen around the cemetery. One of them happened near the top of the road, and one of them happened where the road meets the head of the tide road down here.
Uh-huh.
So our experiences as a group, we would go down there as teenagers. Like we had one kid that found a bottle of liquor and we like stowed it down there, and we'd go down there and be dumb teenagers and take sips of this really undrinkable alcohol that our friend, I don't remember what it was, something awful, something terrible. And we hid it down there at the cemetery or whatever. And we were starting to hear, like, I would say, oh, my bunny got his tunnel down. Sorry. I just realized like he's fine. He got bored apparently, and he knocked his whole tunnel into his play yard, which is fine. He can play in that.
They get destructive when they get.
Oh gosh, he's not destructive at all. He just like very zoomy sometimes. He doesn't destroy a thing. He just wants to jump and play on everything. He's a little sicko. I love him though. So we would go down and we would go where the water was underneath at the bridge and on the rocks, and we go jumping from rock to rock to rock, right? Like somebody like me had no business doing that because I am short and awkward and hypermobile, and I should have had an accident. Like I really should have, right? And then there were gentlemen in the group that were fit and athletic and did sports and all of this. One of them at one point like slipped in a really weird way. I watched it happen. Like he was solidly grounded and he literally just went forward like this and almost fell. And he said that he felt like he had a hand that touched his back and basically just pushed him forward on the edge of the rock. And I watched it happen too. So like I knew, and I mean, I wasn't out there getting completely wasted or anything. We were kids doing a shot or two, maybe smoking a little weed or something. I'm not hallucinating or anything, but his whole body literally moved forward on the rock and he almost fell directly into the water. That was the first really weird thing that happened to us there. But then we would also hear just like these weird chittery almost like voices coming from behind the cemetery, like I don't know how else to describe it, but it was like the weirdest noise, and we couldn't place it. Sounded like an animal, it sounded like a human. We didn't really know what it was, so we just tried not to go back there or like not piss it off or whatever, and then one of our friends got like real heated at it one day out of nowhere. He like had this episode where he's like, I'm sick of these weird things in the woods and this weird shit and these ghosts and whatever. I'm gonna go find it. I'm like, we don't do this. Like Appalachia, they start whistling or saying your name. You don't
don't go chasing them.
You don't follow the chittering voices into the woods. So he tears off into this behind the woods, behind the cemetery. And we keep hearing the noises getting louder as he's getting back there more. And so I'm like, do we go in? Do we go in after him, man? And I looked at my other friends and I'm just like, we got to go after him, man. The ghosts are going to get him. Like, we didn't know what the hell was going on, right? So we just start going after him. And he's standing there and there's nothing around. There's nothing around, but we can still hear this and it sounds closer. And he just starts yelling, fuck you, like that, right? And we start hearing voices yell, fuck you back. But they are
weird.
I'm not even like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Like,
wow.
I have never, and I will never experience anything again like it in my life. And I looked at everybody around me like, are you guys fucking hearing this? And they're like, yeah, we need to get out of here right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So we bolted. And that's not even the last thing that happened there. I think I'd learned my lesson with this stupid road, but apparently
just
I did
avoid
not.
it.
No. So like I rode out there one night. I snuck out of my house because I was that kid. I snuck out of my house, and I'm riding my little bike down there because we're gonna do a couple shots and we're gonna hang out. And my tires are flat too. I remember this, like I needed to air my tires so up the Doak Road, right? And I stopped because it's harder to ride this bike at this point than walk because there's just like not enough air in the stupid tires. And I've been going for like a mile at this point. So get off the bike. And at this point, it's at the top of the Doak Road as it comes off of like the main road there in Belfast. You remember that High Street, maybe. So I'm standing there, and this is where there's like a pipeline cutout or like where they run the electrical lines through, where they basically like carved kind of almost a corridor into the forest there to run. Yeah. So I'm standing right there, and I start hearing crunching in the woods, like crunch, crunch, crunch. And it stops, and I'm listening, and then it's a little closer, crunch, 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 and it stops, and I'm like, no, this is some Blair Witch shit. This is not happening right now. And I listen again, and then it sounds more aggressive, and it's closer. It's crunch, crunch, crunch. So I hop back on that little flat tire bike, and I'm like, until I get to the head of the tide road, and I almost crash because I'm driving this little bike uphill with flat tires so fast, right? So I go careening off the bike, like I go off the bike, right? Like I kind of like I don't fall, but I kind of like dramatically like topple over, sort of catch myself, and I'm like right near my buddy's house. He lives like right near where head of the tide road meets Doak Road, and I see what I can only describe as a panther kind of looking thing.
Interesting.
I'll be interested to hear, because I don't know a lot about cryptids. I'll be interested to hear from any viewers if they have seen anything or heard of anything like this before. It didn't have a cat face. It had like an ugly gargoyle face, and it crawled really low to the ground like this, and it was all black, and it was on all fours, and it was very big, and it was not
interesting.
And it was not a bear, and it was definitely not actually fully there either, because there were like parts of it I could see and not see, and then it was just so quick and it was gone. Like I couldn't see anything. Yeah.
Wow. So definitely a lot of stuff. Makes me want to go and check out this Doak Road. So that's being added to my list, because I don't mind going wandering around out in the woods at night with the spooky things. It's kind of my gig,
right?
So I would love to go out there.
You've got a whole road to check out too. I mean, so it's
fantastic. So I have a lot of thoughts of that from start to finish in that story. Actually, there's so much cool stuff there. And
tell me all your thoughts.
Yeah. So first off, like, obviously cemeteries are gonna be like, they're always creepy. I think every teenager, especially in Maine, we always had, you go and at least at one point when you're 15, 16 years old, you're going to be go out and smoking weed near a cemetery.
Yeah.
That is a main quintessential part of growing up here. So that part of it, it's like you're always out there, you're always creeped out. There's always going to be something. Like I remember when I was a teenager, we had one up the road that we had went into one night, and we all got spooked, and like most of it was probably just us freaking each other out. But it does not seem to be the case here, because again, it happened multiple times. It's not like you guys just went out there one time, got the shit scared out of you, and never went back. Right. So that definitely like makes me tend to think that there's something weirder going on out there.
Oh, yes.
The big thing first off that you brought up that is like immediately like coming to mind. So the weird little voices that you're hearing out there, especially in Belfast area, there is very well-known, very old and established folklore when it comes to little people in Maine. That means like basically even like the Wabanaki people talked about it for centuries, about how we have multiple types. Some of them are totally cool, normal little earth spirits that just hang around and they're mostly fine. Some of these things could be extremely nefarious.
Oof.
Some of them mimic humans. Some of them do that to lure people in. Some of them do it just because they basically want to mess with you and drive you
Yep.
away. And it's a scary way to get people to leave if you
Yep.
sound like there's like a bunch of shit going
I
on
felt
around
fucked
you.
with. I felt like you don't belong here. You need to leave.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard stories where they would like intentionally, like your friend running off into the woods was definitely like the worst fucking thing he could have done.
I
Because I have
know.
countless times heard of people doing that, and that shit does not go well.
No, it doesn't. God.
So there's like a ton of them, and like literally there's probably like at least 3 or 4 different things out there that come to mind that could be it fit the descriptions of the sounds. But
Yep.
hearing that they picked up mimicking voices, so a lot of people nowadays will talk about what they call a mimic. I
Mhm.
don't believe what the internet calls as a mimic is a mimic per se, because when I think of mimic, I think D&D, and that's not
Yeah,
what
yeah,
this
yeah,
is.
yeah.
But there are plenty of cryptids and weird little things that like to make the same sounds we do. Sometimes
Mhm.
they don't know that it's a sound that we make.
Yep.
Sometimes they do it simply because they're imitating it like a parrot does.
Yep.
But other
Yep.
things do understand it. And whatever you were out there with, it sounded like it understood at least enough to be able to use it as an advantage to try and like mess with you
Mhm.
guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like you want us out, we want you out, motherfucker.
Exactly. So the moment that your friend went running off, if you guys had probably not went after him, I'd hate to have heard what ended up happening otherwise, because that's usually at that point in the horror movie where that's the first guy that gets picked off, and
Oh
then
yeah.
the rest
Oh
of it is
yeah.
just downhill. The other thing, the cat-like thing. So there's a few things that I've heard of. First of all, cougars, even though they're not officially recognized in Maine anymore, every single person I know that's lived here long enough has seen a cougar.
I have seen a cougar here before too. This was definitely not a cougar, I promise.
Okay, so ruling that out, because that's usually whenever somebody's like, I saw a weird big cat, that's the first thing that I usually go to is I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
it was the
I know that
face.
we
It was
don't
the
officially.
it was the face. It didn't have a cat face. It almost had an ugly man face.
Yeah, so that one, that right there, again, calls back to some older legends and some specific stories that I've heard. So, Appalachian folklore, you have things called the Wampus cat. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've ever heard of
I have.
those.
I think I
That
have. Yeah.
sounds very similar to that.
Mm.
The other one that comes to mind that's a much more localized thing, we have there are 2 types of like main cryptid cats that were like known by like folklore in the area. So there's the ding ball,
Mhm.
and then there's the ding maul.
Hmm.
The ding ball you usually would never see because they usually, according to folklore, they hide in the treetops, like in branches that are just outside of your normal field of vision. They will sit there and they'll make noises that sound like a song, like somebody singing to lure people to
Mm.
come under their tree. And then when they do, they'll swing their tail down and they'll usually, it's got a big bone on the end of it, and they'll just, yeah, and
Yeah.
knock them the fuck out and then drag them up into the trees.
Yep.
Doesn't sound like what you saw, because what you saw came down on the ground,
Yep.
which makes me think as this other thing called the ding maul,
Hmm.
which is pretty much harmless. They're just weird looking and kind of strange little guys, but they are like, they of course would be weird, but they're also a lot smaller than what you're describing. What you're describing is something very big.
Yep.
We have a lot of weird stuff that doesn't fall into normal classifications, that like half the time I'm like, I can't tell if this is supposed to be an animal or if it's like a spiritual entity.
The other
And a
thing
lot
I
of
thought
times
too.
they cross over here.
Yeah, yeah. And my other thought too is like, because I just heard all that crunching up the road in the woods just before that. So could it be a manifestation of whatever
Yep.
the fuck that was? You know what I mean?
Right.
It was like projecting something to continue to try and freak me out.
Entirely possible. Entirely possible. And we don't know. I mean, we don't know enough about a lot of the stuff that is in those situations. Like, I believe that there's plenty in this world that we don't
Yep.
fully understand.
I will say too that I got the general impression that it could walk on its 2 legs if it wanted to.
Ooh, that's, yeah. Always makes you kind of question things that can, just choose to do things that they probably shouldn't if they were a normal animal. So
Yeah, yeah.
I know that there's going to be comments. If anybody hears that story, there's going to be at least a few people that could be like, Skinwalker.
Oh,
Skinwalkers are such a very specific
that can't be the
thing.
default. They are so specific. That's like Dr. House and Lupus. Don't do that, kids.
This is the thing, is like in the last probably 5 years, so much of like the internet culture around cryptozoology, folklore, etc., has devolved to the points that everything that is either a weird animal or vaguely humanoid is somehow a skinwalker.
Well,
and I'm
will
like,
say
that's not what those are.
I didn't feel threatened by this particular thing. I was just more like confounded by it, because I just kind of like dumped my bike after running away from God knows what. And I was like, what is this? But I didn't get the impression that it was like going to come toward me or anything more or anything. It was like, oh, a black cat just crossed my path. That's what came into my head, basically, when it happened.
Huh, interesting. I mean, I guess that's good. At least you didn't feel anything malicious from it. That would probably be a much worse scenario. But at the same time, in that environment and knowing what you know is definitely going to make you a little more ready for anything, especially if you're already have it built up. You know that you've already had weird experiences and stuff like that. I definitely see how you're walking along, you're riding your bike or whatever, and all of a sudden there's a weird man-faced panther or something is sitting in the road. I probably would have had the same exact reaction, even if I did think I knew what it was. And honestly, that's a new one. I have not heard one that had those specific details, so that's wicked cool. I'm definitely gonna be doing more research.
I've never shared that story really with anybody outside of the people in that community that I grew up with too, so I'll be interested to hear what people say about it.
I definitely will be too, because that's a fascinating story and not something you hear of every day. And again, we do have weird stuff up here that I can kind of think of as like vaguely resembling it, but I've never heard an encounter like that. So that is cool. Wicked. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course.
Me. Definitely want to have more conversations about this stuff, because you've got plenty more experiences. I mean, we only really talked about 2 of them today. You've got tons more knowledge. You've done a lot of stuff, obviously. So I think we'll probably be in touch again soon and see if we can schedule another time to have you come on the show.
Heck yeah.
Because we got a lot of this stuff. Like I said, I definitely want to pick your brain on the Acadian stuff, because that was one thing that I've been researching it. I want to do something, because when I first started the channel, that was one of the first things that when I went on to somebody else's podcast, they were like, Acadia, there was so much history there. Can you tell us about it? And I was like, I can't in one podcast. I'm like, literally, there's just so much. And I don't even know where to begin to write a script that would begin to cover. I mean, there's going to be a book someday, right?
I'm going to definitely be writing a book about some of this someday. I've got like, I run the gambit on fucked up white people history too, as far as that history is concerned. Like, I had a grandmother that was sold into indentured servitude and then put into basically an arranged marriage when she was a child here in Maine. And and then I had my grandfather's family became accidentally Canadian by virtue of where the boundaries were drawn when they were hiding out from being deported. And my 11th great grandfather was Pierre Thibodeau, who founded Chipouty, which was the colony on the Chepody River. I know quite a few things about quite a few things. And the displacement and some of the culture and all of that too. So.
The great upheaval, as they call it nowadays.
I know.
What's so great about it?
I know. Let's call it what it was. It was ethnic cleansing. We were trying to burn all of the French and indigenous people out of their homes. That's what we did.
Exactly.
And then that. And I do think that from away mindset remains pervasive from those times, but it's so ironic to me because we have like a higher Franco-American population per capita than any state in the US. And so we still have this like from away mentality from the time that we were like killing all the French and all the indigenous. And it's like, what you hate now, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how that goes, isn't it? I mean, especially when
Yes.
it comes to American cultures, we tend to do that a lot, and that seems to be the one recurring theme of all things I see in the West is like we tend to repeat those same trends. It
Oh
just
yeah.
takes us 100, 200 years at a time, and then we keep doing the same crap. So,
Yep.
not surprised that we ended up here again, I guess. It's just unfortunate that we never learn from mistakes, right?
Oh, for sure.
Well, it's been great having you on. I really appreciate it. It was such a fantastic time talking to you. I definitely want
Yeah.
to get together and talk more about all of this cool spooky stuff.
Oh
We
yes.
have yeah, so many small commonalities in the area and everything, just where we grew up, people we knew, and
Yep.
different things. So I'm sure we can have further chats. Thank you for sharing so much with us as far as the stories. Anything before we get ready to wrap it up? Anything you want to plug, anything you've got going on, anything that's important to you, if there's anything that you got going on that you want people to know, this is going to
Yeah.
be, yeah,
Of course. So yeah, if you guys ever are in the Ellsworth area, you can certainly check out our shop at the Dreamcatcher on Main Street. We're downstairs, Wicked Treasure. We're down in the old morgue. We're selling uranium glass. We are on eBay too. We're on Poshmark. We're going to be doing some art drops over the next couple months this summer. We're going to be taking these little marbleized state of Maine that we made, and we're going to be wood burning on the back our little logo. We're going to be hiding these around the greater Bangor area for people to find and keep. So they'll be able to keep art. And then this will also act as a coupon. If you take it to our booth, you'll be able to get, we're going to do varying amounts. We'll probably do one that's like a 50% that will hide somewhere real good, but we'll do anywhere up to 50% off. People find them downtown and they can take them there and then they can buy something from us. And they can keep the art. So permanent scavenger hunt coupon art, I guess, is going to be happening. So Wicked Treasure is on Instagram and Facebook. I am going to start keeping up with the pages soon, I promise. Other than that, you can find me on Substack. I'm on there just as Jenni Plum. And my main Substack is Nom de Plum. And then I also have the Maine Soapbox, with Maine spelled out as the state. Gosh, what else? I don't know. I have an Amazon author profile, and that's probably where I'll be selling the new book. And I will keep you
looking forward to
posted
that.
on more information on that as soon as I know what I'm doing with it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to much more to come on that, because
Yep.
it sounds like a great idea, and I am always up for new, especially people that self-publish and stuff like that, because I really think that that's where publishing is going. We all
Oh yeah.
saw the thing with Barnes and Noble the other day, and I'm sure that we were all super duper happy to hear their positions and opinions on that. So hey, more indie authors, if you want to write, do it, because that's great. We need that.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah,
then maybe
I'll
some of these indie
definitely
authors will
be.
get picked up, and you never know. Like, I think TJ is going to be one of the next great horror authors for Maine, personally.
Every time that I talk to him, I'm like asking him, "Are you writing? Are you writing? Are you writing? Have you written anything recently?" And he's like, "Nah, man, nah, man."
Ah,
And I want more people to sit there and poke and prod him, because
TJ, start writing again.
yeah, he's got a good mind for it, and we
He
need
does.
more. And we need more. So yeah, definitely an agreement there. Maybe we've enough of us sit there and go, "Hey, man, get
Right?
on it." Well, hey, it's been fantastic talking to you. I will put links in the show notes to your Substacks. Anything else, I'll get them from
Threads
you
is
right after
fine.
the
I'm
show.
on Threads all the time, so you can put
Yes,
my
threads
there.
where we
Yeah.
met, where so
Yeah.
much of the world seems to be connecting, but nobody talks about it, because it's that hidden little part of the millennial culture that I think so many of us are glad to have, but it
Yes.
just doesn't get recognized for what it is right now.
We don't want it
Maybe
to, because then
someday.
it'll get invaded and taken over, and then it'll go like the way of
Yeah,
MySpace and Facebook and everything else that was ever kind of good once.
I don't know. As far as like gatekeeping is concerned, I think we've done a pretty good job on there of
Yeah, we
gatekeeping
really
the
are.
brands and stuff from ruining it. And then we're
Yeah.
like, the moment somebody tries to do something, we just basically tear their asses apart and then move on. It's pretty great for that. We keep the riffraff out that way.
Oh, for sure.
Well,
Awesome.
hey, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I will be back with y'all in a few. Good evening, hikers, and welcome back to the Fogcast. This is the Reverend Redbeard again. It was a super fun conversation that Jenni and I had, and I am very interested in hearing more about her experiences up here in the Pine Tree State. I'll also be looking into more of the activities that have been going on around that area that she was describing, because it's not the first story I've heard come out of that neck of the woods. Seems like it could be a trend worth looking into. Anyways, this is your friendly reminder that the Fogcast is an Acadia After Dark production. Sound effects and background music are credited to Epidemic Sound. Our intro and outro music was written by Pine Tree Riot. If you want more of the show, head on over to acadiaafterdark.com, and if you would like to support the show, consider becoming a lantern holder on Patreon, where you can find ad-free episodes, bonus content, and more. Keep those lanterns lit, and stay safe out there, hikers.